Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Christy O'Neill, and I am the National Director of the Channel Program here at Otava. And today we are going to talk about disaster recovery as a service. And most of the partners that I talk to, even the ones that do have a really good understanding of what DR is, we still get a lot of questions around how do I have these conversations with my customers? What is the best way to approach a conversation with a customer? And so today we're going to try and simplify that out for you as much as we can. And we hope that if you have any questions that you'll reach out to us after this, but we're just going to get started and see where we go. I'd like to do a couple of introductions just briefly. I have Kyle Cochran down in the bottom window here. He is my national channel director for the East Coast. And I also have Chris Perilski, who is our senior product manager. And we're just going to have a conversation today. And hopefully we'll be able to make this conversation a little easier for you in the future. Okay, so why DRaaS? We're going to start with that. We're going to how to start that conversation with your end customers, what selling DRaaS actually looks like, and then we're going to run over just some real world wins because everybody wants to know, what does this look like? What sector should I be looking at? What customer size should I be looking at? And also, um, what kind of money am I going to be making by selling these opportunities? Now, these numbers are big and they feel almost overwhelming and kind of scary. Talking about these top industry challenges, you see 700 billion, and what does that mean exactly? Um, Chris, why don't you give us a little more of an understanding around how these numbers and how these particular challenges affect a normal sized organization?
Yeah, so really what you want to think about is so we talk about 700 billion, right? That's downtime across the entire year for every single company that exists in North America, right? That's, for most people that's those numbers aren't even real, right? But on this slide, so when we talk, one of the big things that we want to reference is time to recover, right? So when we talk about these numbers, think about, if you're a small business, what does 10 days with no income do for you, right? What does 2 days with no income do for you? Though that's really what we want to talk about, right? Is take these numbers for what they are. They're using a $50 million company, whether you're 5 or 10 or wherever in between there. Extrapolate that data out. Think about paying your employees if you're not servicing customers or running your shops or whatever it is for 10 days. What does that do to you?
Excellent. When I'm having conversations with partners that are trying to figure out how do I make this important to my customer, we talk about security and we talk about the bad actors and what happens if somebody gets into your organization. But when a partner starts asking those questions to a customer, what would some of those initial questions be?
So yeah, I think we already talked about the downtime one, but I think another one is thinking about um just malicious actors aren't they're the rising problem, right? But you've also got a lot of times it just comes down to human error, right? Think about how many times you working on, whether it's an email or a Word document or whatever, and you click delete, then what?
Guilty.
Right, right. Now if, Microsoft 365 has done a great job of, keeping backups for you already, right? They natively keep those the version history ready for you. So if you accidentally delete a file, you can go back and get it because Microsoft already does those backups for you. But what about the rest of that data that is critical to your business that you're not backing up, right? Let's your invoicing or your shipping records or whatever, and click the wrong button, then what? How long is it going to take you? Can you recreate that information? How does that impact, the next 1 or 2 or 4 days if you're not backing that data up somewhere? If you don't have a second copy of it, these are the like easy things that that we don't think about, right? When we talk about DR, you think about physical devices, right? So you've got your handful of desktops at your office. Somebody kicks a power cable on accident, or you have a power outage. The old school DR situations, right? There's a power outage, there's a tornado, whatever. Um, what happens then, right? So now your computer just crashed. It's not going to work anymore. Now what? What do you do next? These are like the starting points of those conversations, right? Is, God forbid the worst should happen. What do you do?
So I was at an event several months ago, and I had a partner ask me, well, I'm not technical enough in this particular space. I don't want to ask a question that I can't answer. And my first initial reaction was, well, bring us in early and often, which is still one of my biggest statements that I make. But most of the conversation starters that I have with end customers end up being more of a business conversation than a technical conversation. So, do you find that to be the case most of the time when you're speaking with customers? Or,
When we talk with customers or with with any of our sales team here or with our vendors, that's where you want to start. To your point, right? Is the business impact, right? Is what are your business practices? You don't, there's gadgets and widgets for all of the things we're going to talk about. It doesn't really matter what, we have our preferred software vendors, but all of the softwares do similar things, right? And that's, recovering quickly, storing your data in different places, blah, blah, blah. But the core of all of those is the business solution, right? Without a business need, we're just building things to build things. So start with the business problem, right? What are we trying to help you solve, right? Is it risk management? Is it, you've had an outage, you've had a malware event, all of those things get the conversation started to what problem are we trying to solve?
Yeah. Yeah. I think what problem, excuse me, are we trying to solve is one of the better places to start. Because to your point, Chris, we talk about widgets, gadgets, whatever. But if we don't focus on or hone in on what is the outcome and what are we trying to solve for, or what risk mitigation are we trying to take, right? You start having those questions with your clients. And you're not sitting there focusing on the piece of software or whatever the tool is. It is, okay, this is the desired outcome. Now how do we back into that desired outcome, right? um, so when I talk to partners, when we have this conversation, that's what I encourage them to do. Hey, you're very good at solving problems, right? Our partners at the end of the day, and Christy, you can attest to this as well, our partners solve problems for their customers. If you want to really boil it down, at the end of the day, that's what you're doing, right? And so this is another tool in your tool belt to help you solve problems for your customers at the end of the day. If you take that approach to it, instead of looking at it as, okay, I have to know this tool, what are all the acronyms that come with it, because there's 100, how do I make sure that I'm positioning this in the right way? That's what we're here for, right? I would highly encourage, solve the problem, find out what the end outcome or the desired outcome is, and then let's work backwards from there.
that's really great. So, for the partners out there that are watching, a lot of the questions that I find myself asking are, tell me about your current data protection strategy. And if you see the glazed eyes a little bit, um, you need to dig a little bit deeper. A lot of other questions that I ask are, okay, so maybe you have disaster recovery. When was the last time you tested it? And if you get the glazed eyes, a lot of people might buy something and think, okay, it's done. I have it. It works. Um, how do you ever know if it works if you don't test it? So those are some of the easier questions that we ask. And if someone says, well, I don't have anything, or I have something, but we haven't looked at it, we haven't tested it in a while, that's like having an alarm on your house that you never set. So those are the kind of, I mean, shocking, I know, but I had a house alarm for years that I never set. Don't tell anybody. Um, but those are the kind of questions that we're asking, and those really aren't technical. They're really more business. And one of the other things I wanted to point out, this is an easy math situation. So if you take a $50 million company and in revenue, and you divide that by 365 days, that's $136,986 per day that organization would lose in revenue if they couldn't do business. Well, and you say that the average, well, let's not even go with the average. Let's just say 7 days. Let's say you're down for 7 days. You're looking at $958,000 and some change of lost revenue for 1 week. And then the question just becomes, can I, as a business owner, afford that? I don't know about you, but
Yeah, it's
I
not
don't want to
great.
lose that.
No.
And
Well,
and
and
is
there.
is your partner's solution less than that, right? Like, and how much less?
hmm Yeah, I think that's a great point, Chris. And then the other piece that I always talk about too is like that's the financial hit, right? Here's the zeros and ones based on this is empirical data. Math doesn't lie. Um, what does it do to your reputation, right? What does it do to your customer's perception of you? A lot of conversations that I've been having recently is, um, you know, everybody's had a bad experience at something, right? It's just life. Um, People are a lot more likely to be forgiving of a bad experience or a negative experience when there is a clear cut solution in place, right? So your clear cut solution is, hey, we have a disaster recovery plan. We have run it every 6 months. We know how this works. We know what to do. And boom, you're back up online. What does that do to your reputation? Wow, right? These guys are prepared. They're ready to go. Yes, this was inconvenient, but boy, did they handle it in a professional manner that I am completely blown away by. Right. So taking something bad and turning it into a good experience is something else we've been talking about a lot. And what does it look like if you don't have that? And what does that do to your reputation and your experience? So I think you have those conversations together, right? You pair those two, the revenue piece along with the reputation and everything else. It, and we have yet to talk about technology. We have yet to talk about solutions, right? We're not talking about that. These are conversations that you as a partner have every single day. All you're doing is just tweaking it a little bit to talk about disaster recovery.
So everyone talks about it's not if, it's when. No one ever, well, I shouldn't say no one. Oftentimes people think, well, I don't need that. It's not that important. I'm not that big of an organization. My information isn't that important. Um, no, hindsight is 2020, and no one realizes how much they needed this, how much they needed disaster recovery, and not just disaster recovery, but as a service, an organization that can help them recover until disaster strikes. So, Chris, I know you've been a part of several individual customer situations. What kind of comments have you heard from customers in the past that have said, I shoulda, woulda, coulda?
Oh man, so many of them, right? And a big one that we often run into is, well, I thought we had that when really all you have is backups, right? So um, the differentiation between backup and DR, right, and disaster recovery as a service, and you mentioned it specifically, doing it as a service, right? Because as soon as you take that off of your team's plate or off of your end customer's plate and give it to a service provider, you're increasing their security posture because now it's no longer connected to them, right? It's being provided to them. It's a security feature on top of the recovery feature. What we hear a lot of the times, right? Well, I have backups. Okay, well, backups are great, but they're going to take some time depending on, how much you're backing up, right? Think about all of the stuff you put in the cloud, and now I've got to restore all of it versus disaster recovery, where disaster recovery's primary purpose is getting your systems back up and running, right? So this is where we start getting into the really, nerdy tech bits a little bit, but it's really the difference between getting services up and running versus restoring data.
Yeah. I think so. Chris, highlight that one more time because that's a question that I get a good bit from the partner community. They're like, wait a minute, hold on. You're saying backup as a service, you're saying disaster recovery as a service. But if I recover something and I don't back it up, then is there a recovery of a disaster? What, how? This is all very similar, but you're saying it's very different. So
Yeah,
highlight that one more time. I think that's really important.
yeah, and so we work with partners that do both, right? With vendors that do both. But for me, as a product manager and working with our marketing team and working with our customers and our partners and the channel in particular, the real big difference to me is disaster recovery is to get services up and running, right? So customer has an outage, we get them back up and running first, get their people back to work, get them processing, whatever their business is, get them processing again. Then use your backups to start filling in the blanks, right? Filling in that data that might be missing as they're, going back to business. And I love all of our backup vendors, the well, primarily Veeam now, but um and they recover data really quickly, but not quite as quickly as a disaster recovery service is going to. There's a difference between, just as fast as a technology can work versus a technology that is designed for that near instant recovery.
That's
Excellent.
fantastic. Thanks. That's really good.
So, note to self, backup is not DR. And that seems to be the biggest uh, misunderstanding with the end customers themselves. They will often say, well, so you ask a customer, are what does your security posture look like today? And maybe they get the glazed eyes, or maybe they say, oh well, I have backups, or I already have DR. And you're like, excellent, you are so much better prepared than a lot of the other customers that I speak to. May I ask, who you're using for that service? And when you start asking those questions, who are you using? What vendors are you using? What platforms are you using? Are you working with another partner, maybe an MSP that's managing that? And the more questions you ask, you sort of start peeling away those layers. And that's when you find out, oh, well, maybe I only have backup, or maybe I do have DR, but it was the thing that I did 2 years ago. And I don't even know what it does. I don't know where it is. We haven't logged in. I haven't looked at anything. Well, again, to that whole point, if you're not testing it, how do you know that it works? So, Chris, why don't you give a little bit of explanation around what a partner and a partner's customer can expect from a modern disaster recovery as a service?
Sure. So one of the big things that we do first to start with these customers, right? When we, through the partner, and then when we start talking to the end customer, is, prioritizing what are the mission critical, systems or data or what have you, that need to go in first, right? And then we start talking. You start getting into the nitty gritty of RTOs and RPOs, right? So how fast do things need to come up, and what is the longest period of time that you can lose data for, right? So RTO, recovery time objective, how fast do you need to get back up? RPO, recovery point objective, is, what is the duration of time in between those recovery points that is acceptable data loss to you? So those are the real starting points when it comes to like the technical bits of differentiating which vendor and which technology we want to use to protect that customer, right?
So, quick question. Then let
Yeah.
me ask. Let's say I'm a customer
Mhm.
and I have an outage. I've, malware, what have you, situation arises. How do I know what I'm supposed to do when something bad happens, or who am I supposed to contact, or does Otava know who to
Yeah.
contact if they see something?
Yeah. So I shouldn't say the last piece. As we're deploying these services for customers, one of the big things that we do, a lot of customers will have heard of a business continuity plan, right? That's a pretty well used term across most industries. What we do is, we can't necessarily define that continuity plan, but what we can do is help build a disaster recovery plan. So once we get all of the tech bits and all of the, here's this service, here's these systems, everything that are going into it, we have it's a multi-page document that is a shared document between us and customers. So everyone knows in the event of a recovery, we have X, Y, and Z systems. They're protected here, here, and here. Here's all the tech bits, IPs and data and so on and so forth. And here's the order in which they need to be recovered, and what we're going to do to address that, right? So my, system A needs to come up first, then we wait 2 minutes because it's got things it needs to do, then we start system B and system C and so on and so forth. So we work with customers and document that as a shared document so both sides have it. So when they say, hey, we need to kick off our DR solution, everybody's pulling up that same document and saying, okay, here's step one.
Excellent. And that's called the run book.
Yes, it's our DR runbook. To talk back to, one of the other things that we said, that I mentioned earlier, is when we talk about disaster recovery as a service, right? The biggest part and the biggest reason that I mean, obviously selfishly we're a service provider, right? So we want to do it ourselves. But even for partners, one of the things that you can talk to your customers about is remembering that, if you have a malware event and you're running your own DR, you're running your own backups, and it's all on the same networks, you're, that the risk of infection to those systems now goes up. Whereas if you partner with a service provider, now you're detaching those two things, right? They're running in parallel, but not on the same network. So if you get hit by malware, your DR, your backup as a service, is separated, and it's running off to the side.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but don't most bad actors get into your backups first
They sure
if
try.
they
They sure try. So again, if you're using a service provider where it's
yeah.
separated, right? Not and we can get into all the tech bits on how we protect backups as well, but the same thing goes, right? Where there we had some statistics for this last year, and I don't remember them off the top of my head, but there is a not it's insignificant difference in the security of backed up data and disaster recovery data between using it as a service versus doing it in-house.
Kyle and I see this all the time. So, coming from the voice side of the house early in my career, I had a lot of partners, obviously, that were accustomed to selling seats and circuits and maybe some managed network, insert a couple of things. And then I rotate into the cloud and security side of the house. And one of the most difficult conversations is to was to get partners to understand that if you're not talking to your customers about X, Y, and Z products and services, then someone else is probably going to be talking to them. And guess what? They probably also sell, voice and connectivity and insert product set. So if you're not talking about this with your customers, chances are somebody else is. And you don't want to open that door if you can keep from it. This doesn't apply to just one type of customer, one size of customer, one vertical. It's literally across the board in pretty much any and every industry known to man. And Kyle uses this example in a lot of his conversations when he talks about data and making it simple to understand. He talks about a phone. Kyle, I'm going to let you take that one because you
Yeah.
do that really well.
Yeah. So everybody, we all operate, whether we want to admit it or not. We spend way too much time, for the most part, on our phones, whether it's an Apple device, an Android device. Um, we're on our phones constantly. I know for me, for my job and for what we do, my phone's my lifeline. That's how my partners get a hold of me. Um, that's how my family gets a hold of me. My kids' pictures are on there. Your life is on your phone, right? When you go buy a new phone, I don't know, and most of you probably remember this, but I remember getting a new phone and then going, "Ugh, I got a new phone number. I got to find, I got to figure out how to get all my pictures over here, right?" And then there was this wonderful invention called the cloud, right? You can back your phone up to the cloud. And now when you go buy a new phone, you take you take the new phone, the old phone has a QR code on it, you scan it, and then it starts downloading a, a version of your old phone. So the device is new, but all your pictures, all your contacts, everything that you had on your phone on your old one is now on your new one. Um, if everybody does that for their phones, why would you not want to do that for your business? 7 days is almost $1 million in lost potential lost revenue, right? I think that's the number that we threw out there, 900 and some change. Um, that's significant. So we've built it into our lives when it comes to our personal lives, when it comes to our cell phones. Do the same thing for your business. Um, and this slide is extremely accurate. These are a couple of the more common industries that we see, but I would think you'd be hard pressed to find any industry that doesn't need a form of disaster recovery as a service. So for the partners out there listening, it's something that is, as we've talked about this today, there's some pretty easy ways to bring it up, some non-technical ways to talk about it. And it fits just about every customer segment that I talk to with my partners on a daily, weekly, monthly basis.
And if you're looking for a list of common discovery questions um, that you just want to kind of keep in your back pocket, let us know. You can reach out to us at any time. I have a 2-page document with a running narrative on questions that we've asked, questions that partners have asked. I'll be more than happy to share it with you.
And I'll add to that too. One of the things that Christy and I and our channel team here do as well, if you're reading this or watching this and you're going, "Oh man, okay, this is all great, but where do I start?" Right? I don't want to just start calling customers and pepper spraying and seeing, if I pepper everything out there and just kind of see what sticks. A big part of what we do is coming up with a strategy within your current customer base on how we can most effectively have these discussions and have these conversations. So reach out to us. We do this a lot. We're really good at it. And we can help put together a strategy and a plan around your current customer base that you can go in, execute on, and then come back to us and let's get feedback. Hey, this worked really well. This actually didn't resonate very well. I tried to go after healthcare, and I thought I had a bigger healthcare presence. Actually, it did way better in finance. So can we hone this up a little bit better for the finance industry? So I can have those questions. That's what we're here for. So please reach out to us and have those conversations, and we will absolutely be more than happy to jump in with you head first.
So that trigger, those things you want to bring into the conversation with your customers. It's, to Chris's point earlier, the initial issue or reason for needing disaster recovery was mostly around natural disasters. I'm from Texas, so we get the tornadoes occasionally. But then you've got areas like Florida that are dealing with the hurricanes that come through. So, insert where you live, insert where you have most of your customer base, and you'll find those natural disasters, though that user issue. Somebody accidentally overwrites files or um, fails to follow the correct procedure. I mean, we've seen these things happen all the time. So it isn't just always a cyber attack, but the cyber attacks, the phishing, I don't know about y'all, but I get it all the time. I get it on my phone. I get it on my personal email. I get it work email. I mean, and it's so easy when we're going so fast in the times that we're living to accidentally click on something if we aren't being really, really cognizant of the things that come through. So it's it's all encompassing the reasons why you do need disaster recovery. Um, this is a very simple question. Just asking an organization, what's your plan if something bad happens? That's simple.
That's it. That's the starting point.
And you wouldn't, that's not hard.
No. Well, and you'd be amazed too how much that question opens up, right? So what's your plan? We have a plan, right? Sure.
Do we have a plan? I know we used to have a plan.
Right.
Yeah.
We had
Hey,
that one
IT
guy that
guy,
had a
what's our
plan.
plan?
Yeah, exactly. And again, you're hopefully you're starting to see this theme. This is not technical. This is a conversation, and you are asking questions and talking about something focused on business outcomes, not the zeros and ones. So, what's your plan? What does it look like? I know I live in South Carolina. A couple weeks ago, we were lucky enough, I'm saying this sarcastically, to get a bunch of ice on the ground. It, was snapping power lines, and it was made it for a real interesting weekend, right? What's your plan if the power goes out in that situation? It's same thought process, different outcome here. When Kyle inevitably clicks on that one phishing email and then everything completely goes down and no one can log on to anything, what's your plan? How are you going to get it back? And those conversations, especially with this question, um, they really start manufacturing themselves. You ask this, and then you come back to one of us and go, okay, they've got a plan, but what's in the butt? What is the things that come along with that? They haven't tested it in X number of months, years. They think they have one, but they have no idea how to use it. Um, my customer wants to have a plan, but they have no idea how to start creating one. Can you help? That's what we're here for. So, simple question. What's your plan?
So now, for real examples of opportunities where Otava has been able to help. So you want to know what does a good customer look like, or what does a normal customer look like to you? Um, you'll see here that this was a construction company, somewhere between 500 and 1,000 customers. You can see the revenue. It was cloud and disaster recovery as a service, and you can see that the MRR on this one was $16,000. Now, I'm not going to go through all these specifics, We'll have this up in the partner portal, this entire document, the PowerPoint presentation, so you can look at it in detail. If you have any questions, obviously reach out to us. But this will actually break down exactly what that customer was looking for, what we were able to solution for them. And I believe Chris was actually on this one.
Yeah, I was part of this was back in my when I was in the support team days. Yeah, I was part of helping this customer set up their whole DR solution, from private cloud to a shared cloud environment for, to a DR site environment. Um, pretty large customer in general, right? They've got a pretty big infrastructure footprint with us. But they were really happy, and we've done so. Part of our service, right, is we require soft require uh testing twice a year, right? And so we had done a couple of tests with this customer, and they were just, floored by what testing twice a year does for them, and all of the little things that they were able to find. We talked about, do you have a plan? You know, Plans are great, but when you get punched in the face, then what?
Well, their plans change.
Well, and
Every
also, like, I think the other thing, Chris, I can't remember if it was you or somebody else on your team. We were talking about this one time, and they said, "Hey, wouldn't you rather it break or find out that something's not working on a test than you go run this thing live and have an issue? And you're like, oh God, we forgot insert whatever, right? It's much better to find that on a test than in a real world instance.
Absolutely. So transportation, about the same size of employees, revenue's different. And this was strictly a disaster recovery as a service solution. And I'm not going to go into the specifics on this one either, but you can see this particular situation, 3 a.m., our monitoring caught it, and boom, we were able to get this customer back up and running.
So this customer, this was a little bit different situation, right? So this is a customer that was running all of their own infrastructure at their premise, right? So they have their primary warehouse where they do all of their shipping to and from. Um, and they have a dedicated IT team. They do all their own stuff there, but they wanted a DR site, right? So that's where Otava, as a DRaaS provider, we can give them that secondary site that is out of their, that way you're not just running side by side in the same building, because then, if a tornado or a power outage or whatever, cool, you have redundancy inside your warehouse, but that's it. So this is another, a different versus, this is not a, Otava private cloud where we're providing the infrastructure to them. They already have their own. We're just giving them that other site for peace of mind.
This is what partners want to know. You can see the specifics on here. We've got two different examples. $5,300 MRR, 5-year term, total cost of the contract value over those 5 years. So you're looking at, $5,300 spiff payment, because this qualifies for our spiff. We'll talk about that in a minute. Um, you've got the other one below, 3 years, $6,200. So you're looking at your normal commission that you would get along with the one-time spiff. So here's the thing. I would say that the average that I see on a disaster recovery as a service in a smaller mid-sized company is probably somewhere between $4,000 and $8,000, give or take, is what I see average. Um, It all depends on your environment. It all depends on Chris's comments earlier about RTO and RPO. How quick do you need to get back up and running? And as an organization, what is your appetite for actual loss of data? So those are going to be the things that lead the talk track from our perspective about what solution we're going to recommend for that customer. So we've got a couple of different options in our basket that we can solution for that individual customer's needs. It's not just a one size fits all. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. But there is a definite way to help your customers and also, make money on it at the same time.
The other piece that's interesting on this slide, and it's worth calling out, if you look at the terms of both of these opportunities, this is pretty typical for what we see. 3 years is pretty typical. So back to what we talked about at the beginning of the beginning of this conversation. If you're talking to your customers about this and they're doing this with you for the next 3 years, that helps you stay ingrained within that organization, and that helps you stay in front of that organization. So just something else to call out. It's pretty typical for us to see three-year, 36-month long contracts.
Agreed. That's just pretty standard and average. So, getting to the spiff, if you register an opportunity with us, which is super easy to do, you can reach out to one of your channel managers, or you can get into the partner portal and register them yourself. But it has to be $1,000 MRR or more. It has to be a 36-month contract, and it needs to be registered no later than March 31st and close the deal by June 30th. Now, will we see some ups and downs and shifts in our spiffs? I'm sure that we will, but as it stands today, this is the one that is in flight. This will earn you, once the customer is fully onboarded, implemented, and their first bill has been sent out. That is when the one-time spiff will be sent, and also your commissions will go into effect. If you have any questions on this, just give us a holler. And that's pretty much it. I know we talked quite a bit today about hopefully the simplicity of having the conversations with your customers. But again, we're here. If you need us, please reach out, and we look forward to talking to all of you as soon as possible.